Alright everybody, welcome back to another Xvault Gaming video. Xvault here, and today we're going to go over my review of Palworld, specifically for the PlayStation 5, as that's what I did play it on. This is going to be a personable review, so hopefully it's relatable to you, and you find some good information from this that helps kind of influence one way or the other on whether or not this game is for you. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump to it. Alright, so like I was saying, let's get right to the review here for Palworld. This did recently drop on the PlayStation 5. This has been out since, I believe, February for not only PC, if not earlier for PC, but then, of course, via Xbox and Game Pass, of course. So this has had some more months in the oven to bake. I think that has benefited it from what I've seen in the past. I did watch some videos when this was first released, when I didn't have my hands on. Some things looked a little rougher, but overall, workable, right? Let's just start off real quick because this is an early access game still. This is probably going to be early access for a while before it has its official release. Just an FYI, heads up, when it gets an official release, as of right now, for US currency, this is $29.99 plus tax, applicable depending on your state, of course. That being said, why I wanted to bring that up is just due to the fact that once this has an official release, this is probably going to go up in price, just an FYI. That being said, maybe cop this for $30. I definitely recommend it, but we'll get to that. Now, as we continue on here, speaking of early access, this game, I want to report right out, I haven't specifically found any real bugs or anything like that personally. Is there a lot of frame dips? Absolutely. Pretty often. Depending if it's more of a terrain heavy usage or things coming in the background a little bit more, depending on the ecosystem that you're trying to enter, right? The different types. So just keep an awareness of that. That being said, I have not had any game crashes, boot outs, anything like that. Loss of connection with multiplayer because I have been playing this extensively with my son, the wife, friends, all that stuff, right? So I think that's a really good thing to see at this point in time. That's one thing you can expect when it does drop on PlayStation. Typically, it's very rare you get an early access game that is going to be dropping on PlayStation. So this is a rare occurrence, and I think they felt good about it before this was released there. So feel safe about that. Now, that being said, the only bugs that I am aware of on top of the frame drops is the fact that my compatriots, my companions, so to speak, that have been playing with me, their mounts, like their flying mounts or whatever, have gone invisible a few times. They did log out and in real quick, doesn't take long. That did rectify the problem there, of course, but I have not had that personally happen to me, of course. So I would be honest if it did, or if I was falling through floors, I got booted, like I mentioned. Anyways, wanted to get that out of the way because first and foremost, this is early access, but I have put an extensive amount of hours already in this game. That being said, let's talk about the aesthetic of it, right? What type of game is this, by the way? Well, this game is really a mix of things. We can't just say it's basically a survival game, an MMO type of survival game, so to speak, more condensed, not MMO in the grand scape of things like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy, but more just kind of open world MMO-ish with stats and leveling up and all sorts of other systems. This is also basically, we're going to make this as verbatim as possible here when I'm saying this, but it really is Ark meets Pokemon, right? I'm sure you've heard this before if you've ever even looked into this game. If you haven't, this is your first time seeing it or hearing about it, then of course it is an exact verbatim deal here, right? Pokemon meets Ark, Ark meets Pokemon, whatever you want to put at the forefront there. That's exactly what this is. What I do respect about this game is I do feel it's a lot faster. I didn't super get into Ark. My son did, and so did a lot of other people. Of course, it has a cult following. But this feels like it has a really good pace. It's also, you have some eating you have to do, but there's no drinking. You don't have to go to sleep. There's not those nitpicky aspects, and we can contribute that to Conan as well, if you've played that survival open world game as well. Not a bad game either, just a lot of survival aspects. So they take some survival aspects, you have to pay attention to it, but it's not over the top. You're not feeling like it's just, this over enduring type of game you have to pay attention to. But you do have to feed yourself. You have to feed your pals, which is what the Pokemon type of characters and creatures, monsters are. So keep that in mind as well. You have to worry about if you have them in a base, because you have your base set up right. You think of your Pokemon. I'm going to do a lot of Pokemon references here because that's what we can probably understand, right? So bear with me if there's a lot of uncanny resemblances here. But you do have your PAL box, which is basically like the box in-box over at, let's say, your Pokedex, right? You put them in there. That's where you can keep a ton of these monsters, these pals, and keep them there as well. So that's what you do, and that's what starts your base as well. So you have that base, you have a circumference around that base, it only goes so far. That's what you can build in for your, weaponry, your workbenches, your cooking, pots, you name it, melting, smelting things. Tons of stuff to do here, a lot of cool things you can explore, learn to unlock, create, and so on and so forth, which is what to be expected in a survival-like game like this. So they do this extremely well. I don't think it's over the top in regards to trying to learn too much. It takes a minute. It's a little bit of a steep learning curve, especially if this genre type is new to you, but stick with it just for a couple hours, and I promise things will start to fall into place. And the longer you continue to play it, the better you're going to be, and then more and more puzzle pieces start to fit together, and it just clicks, and you're just like, this is great, this is what I want to do. And it has that addicting flavor where you're just like, just one more thing, let me just do one more thing. So that's kind of the aesthetic of everything there. So just wanted to lightly touch on that. So keep that in mind. And then, of course, if we're going over, we'll talk about the graphics, right? I like to talk about graphics in most games because it's cool to look at if you want to, or what the type is going for, right? This is going for a cartoony-esque vibe with the Pokemon-like features, right? You get that bright, vibrant colors, but you also have some really cool ecosystems, whether it be the forest, whether it be the volcanic grounds, whether it be the desert. There's some really cool looking things, the ocean, it all looks really well. And then there's some parts where you're like, oh, that textures, and again, early access, but some of the textures you're looking at and you're like, that's not really popping in fully, or this probably could have used some more time in the oven to bake or whatever. But for the most part, this looks really good, immersive enough and everything like that. I don't think they cut any real corners or anything. I think they did a really great job. The map is very large. It takes you quite a while to get from one place to the other, even with a flying mount once that is unlocked as well. So once you do get that flying mount, the exploration is certainly opening up vastly and quicker for you, and it makes it a ton more fun rather than even riding your mounts that don't fly. So keep that in mind as well. But I think aesthetically, I think graphically, it does its job. It does it well. We'll talk a little bit about the pals or the monsters, right? Do they look good? Are they direct copies of Pokemon characters? There's some uncanny resemblances. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There definitely is. I'm not going to list them all. I'm not going to go over them all. I'll let you discover those for yourself because that's a whole topic for another video. But there is definitely a lot of resemblances here. And there's some that do seem like they're their own designs, which is pretty cool as well, which I like. Maybe almost like Digimon-esque on a couple of them, or any other references you might throw out there. But I think they do a good job. I think they function well. Overall, I think just everything flows well. I like how you can throw them out at a whim. You toss them out to battle for you. You can give them all sorts of different commands, but you can really, how I work it is I just leave them on pretty aggressive. They attack what I want them to attack. If I'm done utilizing them for that, I just pull them back in the ball because those balls are going to be those spheres, right? Not like the Pokeballs, but real similar. Hence the current, at the time of this recording, current lawsuit that is forming around these guys. I do feel like, the developers of Palworld and Palworld itself is going to be safe. They had some new partnerships just recently as well, so I think they have something in the bag. If they need to alter some aesthetic designs and stuff like that, I think they can do that as part of the deal, but that's a whole nother side piece as well. But yes, you throw those balls, those spheres out, really easy to do. But again, if you keep your pals out, your monsters out, that is going to require you to feed them more often. So I just kind of keep them in there until I truly need them, because I really don't need anybody following me around if I don't want to. If you want to for the immersion, feel free to do so. Carry some extra food, not too bad. Speaking of that, I don't think it's that hard to carry the food and everything with you. I carry the most simple, basic foods and berries and stuff, a ton of them. It works out. I don't need to cook and bake and do all this weird stuff. It's just not needed, in my opinion, for quite some time. Maybe towards endgame, perhaps. But that's going to be some trial and error there as well, of course. But as we go on, I just think as a whole, it's just really a lot of fun. Like I said, the addictive gameplay comes through the gameplay loop of course, catching those pals, catching those monsters. You got to catch them all, got to collect them all type of feeling. They give you bonuses and boosts to collect, the same types and everything for experience, and then you can condense them and make better variations. You can breed them. You can do all the things that, again, you can do in Ark, as well as a lot of things you can do in Pokemon, because you can also breed and stuff in Pokemon, get those perfect IV stats. There are IV stats in this game. They are a little bit more hidden, so you kind of have to just pay attention to what the HP looks like, the attack looks like, stuff like that. There's cool little things like dungeons. Of course, you got the towers, which are essentially the gym leaders or the boss fights. Those are in a time limit, as you can see as we show some clips here and there. It is a time limit. You have about 10 minutes, and of course, every new tower is progressively harder and harder, so you just want to make sure you scale, level, get your weapons, train your pals up, and so on and so forth to make sure you're equipped for that. So, and it's just great. It's great fun, especially you're going to have a lot more fun. This is totally soloable if you give yourself the chance to do so you don't have to play with anybody, but you can. And it certainly is a lot of fun when you are playing with others. And of course, if you're catching world bosses and stuff, it's okay. They'll respawn the next day. So if your buddy, if your friend, your significant other, whoever catches one and you miss out and you're like, dang it, I wanted that one. Well, just wait a little bit. It'll respawn. You guys can try together or try solo, whatever you want to do. So there's a lot of forgiveness in the game as well, if you will. So that being said, I think there's a lot of forgiveness too. When you die, you can go back, get your pack and everything. You have to repair stuff, the typical stuff that we've gone over before. So I think that's, not too bad, or again, something that might be over the top or just repetitive and you just don't want to do it. It works out just fine. But as of right now, I really recommend this in regards to everything that it does offer. I mean, there's no microtransactions right now. There's no battle pass system. There's no incentive to try and buy something. There is no shop at this point in time. It's like you buy the game and this is the game. So there's a finite level of content to do. I'm sure they'll continue to give you out some DLC, free DLC, and I think they're going to eventually monetize it, right? They're going to give you maybe more paid DLC. We'll see how that looks. I really hope. From the last, tweet or post from the developers, they mentioned that they don't have any plans to make this a, free-to-play type of game or a microtransactional type of game. So hopefully they stick to that, or they do something real similar to like Helldivers 2, where you get these free passes, these battle passes. You can pay to get them quicker, or you could just grind it out and it doesn't have any effect on the actual gameplay or anything like that. It's a lot of cosmetic stuff. So hopefully they do something like that, if they are going to go that route. If not, that's fine. This game is going to let you spend hundreds of hours for that $30 price tag. I think that's fantastic. I haven't been able to put it down, folks. This game, I'm not huge in the survival aspect games, but this just does everything so well, and I just keep kind of looking at it. I'm like, this is early access. This game can only go up from here. They do it so well. So some folks will be like, well, it fell off, or, it had such a high player count when it first released. I'm like, yes, it's because it's not a recurring game. It's not a live games as a service live game, right? It's not Fortnite. It's not Overwatch. It's not even Helldivers 2, where you're just going in and you're trying to grind out other stuff if you don't want. Once you do all the content, and I mean everything, even if you were to plat this game, you may not want to come back, or maybe you want to help a friend and it's fun for you, or whatever the case is. That's fine. There will be more content coming down the line, I assure you of that, as the devs have mentioned that. So there's a lot of things to kind of gauge here, but this is 100% worth that $30 price tag. I mean, I would even pay $50 for this game. It's totally worth it. Not sure if I'd pay $70, because they're just, you'd want that quality shored up a little bit with certain aspects, right? But of course, that being said, all those there. The last little tidbit I want to mention, of course, is I do wish the multiplayer portion was a little bit friendlier. It's not bad, it's just a little cumbersome, right? So if you start in a world, Just a heads up, you do have a passcode, a password for each session. You have to go into the options section, look at it, and give that to your friends. So you're either going to message them through the system, you're going to text them, whatever the case is, so they can join you that way. It's not open, which could be nice, but it should be a toggle button to let randoms in there, or you just want to play solo and lock the play session or whatever the case is. So I find that a little odd. And then the other aspect is I think they stopped this so you don't kind of cheese another level or another world, if you will. Your friend's generated world is when you join the world, you have to create a new character, which means you're not bringing over your pals, your knowledge with your character for blueprints and creations and all that. So you are starting from complete scratch. So keep that in mind. If you're like, oh yeah, I'm just going to bring in my totally maxed out dude, or my dude that's super high level and has all these pals that'll help us in your world, that's not going to happen. You are starting completely over. Keep that in mind. Found that out not too long ago here, and I was like, well, that's odd choice, but I also kind of get it. I can't knock him, I guess, but it is a little bit of a gripe still on my end, because give us the option too. If we want to create a new character and start from scratch, that should just be an option, right? That's just my opinion there. That being said, let's wrap up the video here. Let's give it that final score. Obviously, from this entire video, you could tell I really enjoyed myself and I highly recommend the game, right? So let's give it a score. Now, I've been thinking and going back and forth and stuff like that. I really don't want to give this too high of a score. This thing is in early access, but I'm gonna have to go. I went back and forth. I feel like we have to do it. We have to do it. And I thought with myself, I'm sorry I'm struggling with this, but I thought with myself, I really do think it deserves a score. We're going to go with an 8 out of 10. That's right, an 8 out of 10. I was thinking a 7 out of 10, but there's just so much going right for this game, and it's fun. What matters in a game is fun, and it's playable, and there's no hiccups or issues in regards to playing that how you want, when you want. I think this is great. This is a great version that released on PlayStation. Again, I didn't play this 8 months ago or so. So if there were a lot of hiccups and stuff like that that might have, tainted that palette, so to speak, then so be it. But as of this time, when this was released on PlayStation, and I've been continuing to play many hours into this game, is just a fantastic game. I think it totally deserves an 8 out of 10, and it deserved all the praise when it first released. And honestly, hopefully this puts some fire and some other stuff under the toes of, Game Freak for Pokemon and Nintendo, and lets them see like, hey, this is what the gamers want. This is what the gamers want, is more, not the same old Pokemon over and over. Let's branch out, explore, let other folks do it too if you don't want to do it. But I think that's great. Competition's always a good thing. I've always stated that, but yes, we will stick with that score, obviously. I do not go back and forth once that has been decided. Totally deserved, and I think you all should give this a shot if this genre is up your alley. And if not, for that price, you might give it a shot. You might be surprised with yourself. So I appreciate that. We'll wrap it up here. I appreciate you making it to the end of the video. If you did, made it a little bit lengthier than I thought it would be, because there's just a lot to go over in this very large scale game. So I appreciate that. As always, if you haven't, definitely leave a like, leave a comment. Would love to hear from you down below. Have you tried the game? Do you plan to do it? I've had a few folks reach out to me stating that they weren't even aware this game came out. It was just a quick shadow drop via State of Play. I don't know how much news was dropping around it with articles, but it is out, obviously, so definitely give it a try. I think you would all really, truly enjoy it if you do give it a chance. So that being said, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and we will see you next time on the next Xvault gaming video. And until then, take care.